Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody. Hello, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Welcome to the orientation to the ACRL instruction section. This event is hosted and facilitated by the ACRL Instruction Section Membership Committee. And just a bit of housekeeping. You'll hear us refer to IS. We're talking about the instruction section. Just want to make sure we're not too jargony. And we will have time at the end where we will answer questions in real time, but please feel free to put your questions in chat whenever they come up and we will be sure to answer them. So we have several folks here today to talk with you about IS, and we're each going to introduce ourselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Pagowski. I'm a curriculum and pedagogy librarian at the University of Arizona, and I'm the current chair of the instruction section.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Feist, and I am the undergraduate instruction and engagement strategist at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And I'm also the current vice chair, chair-elect of the instruction section.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Tingelstad. I am the head of instruction and curriculum engagement at UNC Charlotte, and I am currently the chair of the IS membership committee.
Hey, my name is Jennifer Holland, and I am a teaching and learning librarian at the University of Houston. And I'm also the secretary for the IS membership committee.
So my name is Brianne Markowski. I'm the head of teaching and learning at the University of Northern Colorado, and I am I'm on the IS membership committee.
And my name is Amanda Nichols-Hess. I'm the chair of instruction or coordinator of instruction and research help at Oakland University Libraries in Michigan. And I am another one of our IS membership committee members. And so we are going to take you through our session today.
So this slide tells you a little bit about the agenda for today. First, I am going to cover what the instruction section does. Next, Brianne's going to talk about IS resources. Nicole is going to talk about IS structure. And then Catherine's going to wrap us up with talking about some ways to get involved. Okay, so let's talk about what IS does. We can begin with the mission statement, which you can also find on the IS's website. And the statement reads, the instruction section of the Association of College and Research Libraries enhances the ability of academic and research librarians to advance learning, teaching, and research with respect to information literacy in higher education. So let's talk a little bit about what we do. Our work is focused on multiple areas, including pedagogy, technology, professional development, as well as the higher education environment. And the work of the IS subcommittees focuses on these subtopics within these broader areas. So a little bit more about us. We are the second largest section in ACRL after the university library section. Currently have more than 3,000 members. And our members work at a variety of institutions, including small private colleges, community colleges, as well as large research institutions. We all have varied roles and responsibilities at our institutions, but what we share is a common interest in teaching and learning, library instruction, information literacy, as well as other connected topics. All right, so I'm going to turn things over to Brianne, who's going to talk a little bit more about our IS resources.
Thanks, Jennifer. So like Jennifer said, I'll be talking about some of the resources that the instruction section provides, including resources for staying up to date with what's happening in the section, resources for engaging with other members, and finally, some resources available for professional support. We have a few resources available to help you stay up to date with what's going on in the instruction section and with instruction more broadly. So these include the IS blog, the newsletter, and also ALA Connect. The newsletter, which you can see on your screen here, comes out twice a year and can be sent directly to your inbox, or you can access it online. And it features updates from the instruction section, and as well as articles about trends and other advice related to library instruction. The blog features the Teaching Librarian Spotlight, and as well as activities about the various instruction section committees, so updates about what the committees are doing. Finally, you can find the instruction section's discussion pages on ALA Connect. ALA Connect is a great place to go if you have questions related to instructions and want to be able to engage in conversations with other members in the instruction section. Our members are really a great source of information, so this can be a great place to get questions answered. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about some of the resources that IS provides for professional support. So in the area of pedagogy, IS committees maintain 2 websites where you can find instructional content, so Primo and the Framework Sandbox. Primo is a peer-reviewed instructional materials online database. It contains lots of great information tutorials to inspire you or that you may be able to repurpose at your library. The Framework Sandbox is also a great place to get ideas, but this site is about how to use the framework for information literacy for higher education in instructional settings. You can share your own activities and teaching resources related to the framework here, and you can also browse and search activities and resources that have been shared by others. Next, I want to highlight the information literacy in the disciplines guide on the ACRL website. So this guide contains information literacy standards and curricula that have been developed by different accrediting agencies and professional organizations and other institutions of higher education. The guide is arranged by discipline, and in addition to the standards and guidelines, you can actually also find research about information literacy in different disciplines, as well as adaptable instructional materials. So that's a great resource as well. For resources related to technology, IS has a couple of supports available. So one is the Instructional Technologies Tips and Trends publication put out by one of our committees 4 times a year. Each volume discusses new or evolving and sometimes maybe familiar technologies that can be applied in the library instruction setting. The most recent issue addressed QR codes in instruction and outreach, and looking back over the past few years, other issues have explored social annotation tools, gamification, virtual reality, and diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in instructional technology. Another IS committee publication, the 5 Things Learning About publication, is published once a year on a specific topic and highlights 5 things about that area. So in the past, this publication was solely focused on technology, but in recent years, they've renamed the publication and now they'll sometimes focus on other under-discussed or timely topics relevant to library instruction. So the most recent publications were about digital reading and contemplative pedagogy. Finally, IS hosts a variety of webinars throughout the year, and archived webinars can be accessed through our website. And all of these resources that I've been talking about are created and maintained by IS members through the IS committee. So they're both a great resource for librarians and also a way that you can get involved. So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole now, who will talk about the structure of the IS section.
Thanks, Brianne. So yeah, let's take a look at the structure of IS and how the section works. So this is a helpful visual here. ALA is comprised of divisions, roundtables, chapters, and affiliates. And ACRL is the largest division of ALA with 11 divisions total. And within ACRL, IS is one of 15 sections. As was mentioned, we are the 2nd largest section after the university library section. Though I think we've had some back and forth over the years over who's had more members. But in the sections, executive committees are selected by election, and then committees are filled by appointments made by the vice chair. Kirsten will discuss that more a little bit later. We can go to the next slide. Of the committees that have appointments, these are made through the volunteer application process, and we have 19 total. The last couple of years, the awards committees were paused as ALA ACRL was reviewing the process, but we will now resume appointments for the next year. So please take a look at the IS website to learn a bit more about the committees, and we're going to detail about all of them here. But you can see which ones you might be interested in volunteering for. And the communications committee goes through a special process for their appointments that we can talk more about again in Kirsten's section. And then the Dudley Award Committee is chaired by the past IS chair, or the IS past chair. So that would be Carrie Forbes this year, though we don't have that committee. And then the nominating committee is chaired by the past chair. So there's a process every year that goes through, but you can still volunteer for those committees, but the chairs are set up through previous IS chairs. Next slide. And then we have IS Advisory, or the Advisory Council, and that is composed of the Executive Committee, which I mentioned are all elected, plus the chairs of the standing committees, which were on the previous slide, and task forces. We may or may not have task forces each year. And then ex officio members, which include the IS newsletter editor, the IS web administrator or administrators, and the director of the Library Orientation and Exchange Clearinghouse, which you might know of as LOEX. The Advisory Council meetings provide a forum for communication and coordination with committees and task forces reporting on activities and making recommendations for executive committee consideration. And those meetings are typically 2 times per year. Next slide, please. So for the IS Exec Committee, there are 9 positions total, all, again, filled through election. So around the time the volunteer form closes, we also have ACRL elections. The chart on the left depicts the chair cycle. So the elected candidate will serve as vice chair for 1 year, then chair for 1 year, and then past chair for 1 year, with additional leadership roles that need to be carried out. And I mentioned these on the previous slide for chairing committees. The individual who is elected secretary serves in that role for 1 year. And then the following year, they are the section archivist. We then have 6 members with at-large roles with 2-year staggered terms. And our ACRL board rep also often joins us at our meetings, and we communicate frequently with that person. Next slide, please. And then last, so executive committee roles for IS. I covered a little bit of this previously, but more detail to the 3 chair roles includes that the chair responsibilities are to schedule and run meetings, to coordinate with ACRL, and to move projects forward. Additionally, the chair must write up a year-end report outlining the instruction section work that covers committee activities. Then the vice chair's main focus for the year, and which takes up a lot of their time, is to make the committee appointments for the next year. The vice chair also plans and coordinates with the current and past chairs. And then the past chair lends their wisdom and experience, as chairs might have questions throughout the year. I have had many. And then they are also the liaison to the Student Learning and Information Literacy Committee, which is outside of our section. It's in ACRL Maine, and as well as the chair of the Dudley Award Committee, which is part of IS, and will, as I said, resume work again starting this next year. And I will hand it over to Kirsten.
All right, so I'm now going to talk about how to get involved in the instruction section, specifically through volunteering. So like Nicole noted, there are 19 committees that IS members can volunteer for. If you're interested to see a list, Nicole posted those earlier in the slides, but also we have these on our website, so you can get a sense of our different committees and the work that they do. If you go to our website there. Our call for volunteers is currently open and it will close on February 28th. So if after today you're interested in volunteering for one of these roles, I encourage you to submit the volunteer form. And in terms of how IS volunteers are chosen, like Nicole mentioned, the vice chair does make these appointments. And just as a tip to make the process smooth, make sure your membership is current. That will just allow you to be appointed in the system. And in terms of our goal in annual appointments, we want to ensure diversity and inclusion in filling these volunteer roles. So this means representation with both experienced and new librarians, different types of libraries, including community colleges, as well as librarians from marginalized groups. And it's also a competitive process. So we do encourage flexibility in committee selections. And part of this is because some committees will have more openings in a given year than others, just given how many folks are rolling off. So if you look at the volunteer form and there's a number of committees that look of interest to you, go ahead and check off all those boxes and that will help us have an easier time finding a placement. And then one other thing to mention here, the awards committees are resuming in 2024. So do feel free to volunteer for those again. I did want to offer one quick side note that Nicole mentioned about the communications committee, in that this committee is a little bit unique. It houses our IS administrators, and IS administrators take care of things like the newsletter and website and social media feeds for our section. So if you're interested in administering these roles for IS, you can indicate your interest by checking a box for the communications committee, and then you'll receive a form where you can further state your interest and goals. There are a number of benefits to volunteering IS committees, and we'll elaborate a little bit on this momentarily. But just as an overview, first and foremost, you get to network with colleagues from other libraries across the country. You get to contribute to the profession, such as through producing, updating tools and resources that peers in your field use. You can gain leadership experience, serving on roles like chair and vice chair. And you can also learn more about the structure of ACRL and IS and how those work together. And then finally, you can help meet your service goals that you have for yourself or any requirements for service your institution may have.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk a bit about my experience with the ACRL IS membership committee. I'm currently the chair, and my one-year term is going to end on June 30th. So this is my third year on the membership committee, and the committee is responsible for encouraging participation of new, returning, and prospective section members. And we do this through orientations, social activities, producing promotional events and materials. And I feel by serving on the membership committee, I'm helping to increase the number of people in the instruction section, and I'm working to inform them about what the instruction section has to offer. So when I volunteered to serve on an ACRL committee, I was interested in engaging with and supporting the organization. And I also wanted to meet and work with people who wanted to serve and contribute to the success of the group. I've been able to do this as a subcommittee member working on communication with the membership and the annual section orientation, the one you're attending today. I've also served as the vice chair of the committee and this year as the chair. It's been inspiring to work with people who have different viewpoints and ideas, and to see those ideas put into action. The people who are working on this committee are energetic. They're committed to the growth of ACRL, particularly the instruction section. So it's been a lot of fun to work with them. I also wanted to point out, and I believe someone mentioned this earlier, that I work in a library at an academic institution, which requires librarians to serve at the state, the regional, and the national level for reappointment and for promotion. So institutional requirements might be the motivation for some people to get involved, but I found that the experience of volunteering provides rewards beyond just filling that institutional commitment. In the coming year, I plan to continue volunteering with the instruction session, perhaps on one of the other committees. Again, if you would like to volunteer, this is a reminder that the ACRL volunteer form is due on February 28th. So I encourage anyone who wants to get involved to contribute to the success of ACRL and to work with interesting people to explore the options for volunteering. My work with the committee has been rewarding and worthwhile, so I would definitely recommend getting involved.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing your experiences and your perspective on why you've served and what your service has been like on IS committees. I'm going to share a little bit about how committees have worked in the past, and this is just my perspective because you've heard about what IS is involved with, how it operates, and you've, like I said, gotten to hear more about one person's experience with IS. But this is a broader perspective on how IS committees can work and how people can work together on different projects or with different goals in mind. So a little bit of background first. I was a member of the IS Executive Committee from 2021 to 2023 in one of those 6 at-large member spots that Nicole mentioned when she was talking about the composition of the Executive Committee. All members of that committee are liaisons to the other IS committees, because those committees are really doing the core work of the section. And so that promotes communication between the executive committee and the IS committees and make sure that they have the support and resources that they need. So I was the liaison to 2 committees, the Information Gathering and Exchange Committee and to the Information Literacy and the Disciplines Committee. And so these committees worked differently, and I thought it would be useful to share information about how they worked, how they approached their projects, as you consider whether getting involved with IS is right for you, or as you think about what kind of involvement might be a good fit for you now or in the future. So at the time I joined them as their liaison to the executive committee, the Information Gathering and Exchange Committee was working on revising its charge and how they went about its work. They're the group for IS that surveys the membership. And so they wanted to both streamline the process, but also, provide additional support to committees that might be seeking information with the goals of gathering more meaningful and useful information for our section. Because the nature of this work, the revising of the committee charge and redefining how they went about their work was one that they needed to discuss. This was a group that was meeting regularly via Zoom, about once a month, every 6 weeks or so. And they were collaborating and discussing changes and revisions. They were also doing work outside of those meetings to develop and then figure out ways to enact or pilot these new processes or procedures. Information Literacy and the Disciplines was an equally engaged committee, but they went about their work in different ways. So at the time that I worked with them, their primary task was migrating content on information literacy and the disciplines, which Brienne mentioned and talked about, into LibGuides. And this was a big lift. There was a lot of information to move over, and certainly there were always technical kinks to work out. So they approached this work through regular asynchronous communication that focused on their tasks at hand. Each member was working independently on an assigned chunk of work that they needed to do. And they were providing updates through a shared spreadsheet, but also occasionally via email, just to touch base and let people know where they were in their work or working on their content. So then what do we want you to take from these experiences, from my observations about how 2 committees went about their work? Well, we really want to highlight that all committees are virtual in IS. So that means there's no in-person expectation or requirement to be at meetings, but they may interpret what that means in different ways, depending on the kind of work that they have to tackle, or depending on the folks who are on the committee. So there are committees that are more asynchronous in their work, as I mentioned, with information literacy and the disciplines, while others on other projects or with other focus areas may have meetings that are scheduled at regular intervals. Also, some committees work kind of consistently throughout the year, whereas others maybe have more sporadic or perhaps intense periods of work at certain timeframes or at certain points within the academic year. The big overarching takeaway, though, that we want you to get from this is that while committee structure or committee approach to work or those products that they create are different, all of the IS committees are working toward common outcomes, and they have tangible and impactful takeaways at the end of a given year. So the information gathering and exchange committee had a new charge, a new process, and a new way of going about their work at the end of the year that I worked with them. And the information literacy and the disciplines had very tangible real world examples of information literacy in the disciplines on the LibGuide. So they could very specifically point to the work and what they had accomplished during their term. So if you're trying to decide what committee might be right for you, here are some recommendations that we have as to how you can kind of get more information about how different committees are working, what they're focusing on, or what the work ahead of them might look like. You can always attend any committee meeting, any ACRL instruction section committee meetings. They're all open and they are posted through ALA Connect. Excuse me. You can reach out to the committee's leadership. As folks have mentioned, every committee has a chair, a vice chair, and generally a secretary. Or you can also contact IS Executive Committee leadership with questions that you might have. So we hope that these different pieces and different perspectives give you a sense of what IS involves and what engaging with IS might look like. But so at this point in time, though, we'd like to open it up to your questions that we're happy to respond to in real time. You'll also see the IS leadership's contact information here if you'd prefer to reach out directly with any follow-up questions, but we're happy to answer any questions that you might have now.
I can take this.
Great, thanks, Nicole.
How many people are in a given committee? So I think 2 years ago, the number was increased and that there would be anywhere between 10 and 11 slots per committee to more opportunities for people to volunteer. The communications committee is a little different. We're making some adjustments there, but all the other regular committees between 10 and 11. Yes, thank you for.
Oh, Nicole, your sound I can see you're talking, but we can't hear your sound. But if you didn't see in chat, there's just a comment about that often meetings are posted less than a day before they're occurring, which is certainly not specific to IS, but definitely is happening in IS, I'm sure. And I think the expectation and the guideline is that, yes, that should be happening well in advance to give folks enough notice so that they can participate in those meetings, especially since many of us, I'm sure, are getting those Connect Digests at the end of the day. Mine always come at 9 o'clock Eastern time. So certainly it's easy to miss those things. So thank you, though, for bringing that up and bringing that to our attention. And it's something that we can, our IS exec can talk about with committee leaders and advisory council or in other settings as well. Nicole, I don't know if your sound is working now, if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah,
Okay,
I've
go.
had a problem
Great.
with these AirPods forever. I shouldn't have used them today, but yes, thank you, Amanda. That is essentially what I was going to say. It should be posted approximately 10 days prior to the meeting. So that's something that we can address with the committees. So thank you. And
there's also a question in, there are a couple questions in chat. So one, and I would invite folks, Nicole, obviously, please feel free to chime in, but if other folks have perspectives or have served on committees, anything that's well suited for early career librarians, any committees come to mind? I'm going to give a cop-out answer. I think that pretty much any IS committee has room and looks for perspectives of early career librarians. I don't think that there's anything that's like you would be over your head necessarily. But are there any specific suggestions that any of our presenters have?
I would say, yeah, I agree. All committees are open to different levels of experience, but in particular for early career librarians, and especially if you haven't volunteered yet with the instruction section, I would recommend noting in your application that you'd be interested in being a secretary, because the secretary serves for a year. It's a good way to get familiar with the committee that you're going to be on, and then you automatically can move into a 2-year regular membership role after that.
Well, and I think that just answered the other question that we have in chat about length of service on a committee. So secretaries serve for 1 year, but other than that, the membership of when you are appointed to a committee, it's a 2-year term, right, Nicole?
Yes, one, or if you're 1 year as vice chair, 1 year as chair. And if there is no one in the committee already who is interested in moving into the vice chair role, then we will look from the applications. So that could potentially be just a year as vice chair or chair, depending on the situation. But everything else is 2 years.
Well, we also have a question in the Q&A about some example measurements that determine committee's success for a period of time. I think this is often determined by the committee. The committees submit reports on their work. They submit plans and they submit reports at the end of the year about what they've accomplished. So I think this is we understand that this is voluntary and this is service. So I don't think that there are severe consequences if things don't quite go as we plan. But committees, I think, have a lot of agency within their charge and within the members of the committee and in connection and collaboration and communication with the executive committee to kind of define what success would look like for them, to define what they want to work on, how they want to interpret their charge, or as I mentioned, if they want to redo their charge or rethink how that committee goes about their work. So so there's that. I realize it's kind of a cop-out answer, I think, but there's a lot of flexibility and freedom and kind of figuring out what that looks like, whether it's a tangible product or whether it's kind of like behind the scenes work that's preparing for something down the road. But others, please feel free to chime in response to the or in response to the question about what some example measurements are that we see as determining committee success over periods of time.
I just wanted to say, last fall, the membership committee put together some initiatives that we planned on working on throughout the year. And they basically were a group that would focus on communications with new members, existing members, returning members. The second one is the group that has put on this orientation today. They've planned and coordinated and made sure this happened. So that was another goal of ours for the year. And then we had a third goal this year that focused on having some sort of activities for the instruction section members. These would be virtual, but they may be something like a book club, a happy hour, something that would allow the members of the committee to kind of, the members of the section to get out of their committees and really have an idea of who else is in the instruction section. So I think at the end of the year, we will be able to evaluate our success based on what happens with those 3 goals.
I'll add that Yeah, so each committee determines their goals for the year. So there's beginning of the year forms that are filled out that come through to exec. And then at the end of the year, the committee reviews how they met their goals. And indicators that are used, it does need to fit into ACRL's plan of excellence, value of, I'm forgetting the exact name of it, but the plan for excellence or whatever that ACRL has, there's certain outcomes, objectives, goals that are on there that the committees choose to align their work for the year to. And then when the chair writes up the report at the end of the year, it needs to kind of fit all of the IS committee's work into that bigger picture.
So we have another question in the Q&A about where there are vacancies right now on IS committees.
I'd be happy to take that. So I've just taken a look, and I believe in all committees we should have some vacancies. Some are going to have more than others, just depending on how many folks are rolling off this year, but all of them do have vacancies.
And we have another question about communication between the different sections of ACRL during this open volunteer application process. So if somebody's interested in a couple of committees in separate sections or maybe in different areas, what's the likelihood to be put on multiple committees across ACRL?
I can take this. So yeah, since Kirsten hasn't done this process yet, I can say from last year, how it works is the vice chair has various spreadsheets of everything that individuals have volunteered for, all the committees they're interested in, as well as what their other commitments are in ACRL. And so all of those materials are consulted with the goal of just having people on, putting people on one committee and not on a bunch. So there's checks and balances within the one person doing all of the work, keeping track of who's going to be appointed where and what the openings are and what they're already doing. So that shouldn't be an issue unless there's not a lot of volunteers, but there typically are a lot of volunteers. So we're actually struggling to get people to have as many appointments as possible with the fewest number of people who don't get appointed.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your questions, everybody. If you have other questions, please continue to put them either in chat or definitely in the Q&A. Thanks for using that. And we certainly don't want to make you all sit here in silence, but we don't want to end too early if there are additional questions. But hopefully this has given you an idea of the instruction section, opportunities for engagement, opportunities for you to get connected with your colleagues who are similarly interested in or participating in teaching and learning in libraries. As Elois said at the very beginning, this session has been recorded. It will be sent out to you as well as a link to our slide deck, as I mentioned in chat. But I popped the link to the ACRL volunteer form in chat as well. So if you're interested in volunteering for an IS committee in the coming year, make sure you fill that out by February 28th. But if there aren't any more questions at this time, just give a big thanks to all of our attendees and certainly our presenters today for sharing your perspectives and sharing this information on IS. Don't hesitate to contact any of them or any of us here who are participating as presenters if you have any questions or there's anything we can help clarify and follow up. So thanks, everybody. I will stop sharing. And looks like we got everybody's questions, so I think we should be all set.